Hey there besties! Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're continuing our recap of the manhwa, Lucia. If you're new to this series, check the description below for links to previous episodes. Lastly, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the video. It really helps our channel grow. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started.
As Lucia walked gently down the hallway, her thoughts were clouded. The future has changed. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, she mused, approaching the dining table set for the tea party. After all, even my own future has changed. Hugh wasn't supposed to be married at this point. And yet, here we are, as husband and wife. The moment I chose to marry him, the future I once knew shifted. That single decision altered the path for everyone involved. What lies ahead is now impossible to predict. Taking her seat, she introduced herself with quiet grace. I'm Vivian Taran, she said softly. Lucia's gaze swept across the table, taking in the carefully arranged seating. It was no accident. This is a test, she realized. A calculated setup by high society, an unspoken initiation. They want to see how I react to a less-than-friendly arrangement. If I show irritation, or if I treat Sophia kindly while pretending not to know the rumors about her, I become the spectacle they are hoping for. Memories from her past surfaced, her time as Count Metten's wife, and later, a maid under Countess Elvin. Back then, I didn't understand that these social events were battlegrounds. It wasn't until I watched Countess Elvin fret over seating arrangements that I began to understand. Now, here sits Sophia, Hugh's former lover, placed at my table, her name conveniently left off the guest list until the last minute. Lucia understood the implications. Duke Taran held growing political influence within the empire, but Count Elvin, Sophia's husband, controlled vast economic power. It's safer to align with wealth than politics, she thought. That must have been her calculation. Perhaps she didn't intend to pit me like this, or maybe she thought she could blame Countess Elvin if things soured. Her conclusion was clear. There will be no friendship between me and Countess Jordan. Despite the tension, Lucia remained composed. But she couldn't help but wonder. Why would Sophia ask to be seated at my table? Is she simply curious about the woman who now holds Hugh's heart? If so, that was a poor choice. It wouldn't reflect well on House Elvin if I were to take offense to this arrangement. She let the silence stretch for a moment, then broke it gently. You're as lovely as ever, Countess Elvin, Lucia said with a polite smile. I've heard much admiration for your beauty, and a few other interesting rumors. Sophia flinched at the subtle barb. Lucia didn't need to say more. The implication hung heavily in the air. The room grew quiet. They already know the rumors, Lucia thought. Even if I don't say them aloud. Across the table, Countess Jordan shifted uncomfortably. She's skilled, Jordan thought, watching Lucia. Speaking in roundabout ways without being overt. She's clearly no ordinary duchess. Lucia's demeanor remained unshaken, her expression calm. Sophia tried to recover. How kind of you, Your Grace, Sophia replied, forcing a smile. Despite it being her first appearance in the capital's social circle, Lucia didn't come across as a naive princess. She carried herself like someone who fully understood her title, and the power that came with it. Sophia knew it too. She's not someone to be underestimated, she thought uneasily. Just then, another lady leaned in with excitement. There's a rumor going around that His Grace bought every single piece of jewelry from Sepia Jewelers just for you, Duchess. Yes, I've heard that too, another chimed in. Wasn't it Sepia Jewelers? Someone pointed to Lucia's necklace. Is that from Sepia? Lucia smiled modestly. Yes, it is. Gasps followed. So it's true, someone whispered. And he even escorted her to the party today. Really? Duke Taran himself? Another exclaimed, clearly flustered. Lucia blinked. So many eyes were on us, she wondered. Hugh only mentioned escorting me because he said it was a recent trend for husbands. I assumed others would do the same. But when we arrived, it was just us. She responded gently. He was simply concerned. This is my first tea party, and he wanted to be there for me. How sweet, someone sighed. That's incredibly romantic. Even Countess Jordan blushed. Duke Taran never attends parties. I was shocked to see him here today. She looked around at the table, realizing what everyone was thinking. The real gossip isn't just her beauty, it's that she's captured the Duke's heart. She's not flaunting it either, the Countess observed. She's composed, observant. Unlike others who let praise go to their heads. Perhaps agreeing to Countess Sylvain's request was a mistake. She glanced briefly at Sophia, who now seemed out of place, tense, awkward, and simmering with jealousy. Sophia's expression wavered. He's never looked at me like that, she thought bitterly. We only ever met in private. When I'd begged for affection, he'd send gifts through others. He was always cold, even his smiles felt empty. I convinced myself that was just his way. She stared at Lucia. But he's capable of warmth, of love. I hate this. I didn't want to see this side of him, not like this. Emotion overtook her, and before she could stop herself, she spoke aloud. His Grace is much kinder than the rumors suggest. When I met the Duke recently, he was just as I remembered. A stunned silence fell over the table. Gasps rippled gently. All eyes turned to Lucia. Lucia's gaze sharpened. She met Hugh, she wondered. Was that a mistake, or deliberate? But Lucia knew Hugh's schedule well. He's been consumed with official duties. When could he have seen her? Lucia spoke with quiet certainty. I believe you're referring to a brief exchange during his visit to the palace. Sophia nodded quickly. Yes. It was just in passing. Lucia smiled coolly. Ah, I see. Then it was nothing significant. Still, I would advise you to choose your words more carefully, Countess. The air turned cold. Whispers began to swirl. Why would she say that? Someone whispered. She should have just stayed quiet. Countess Jordan, desperate to redirect the conversation, tried to speak. That reminds me, Your Grace, last time we... Lucia raised a hand politely. Countess Jordan, if I may, perhaps it's time to mingle with the other guests. As hostess, your attention would be appreciated elsewhere. The Countess froze. Oh. Yes, of course. The ladies murmured supportively. She's right. You've stayed at this table the whole time. Jordan rose hesitantly and walked off, her departure hastened by whispers. Countess Jordan always seemed self-serving, someone said quietly. The moment I saw the seating plan, I knew this would go poorly, another replied. As the party neared its end, noblewomen began to gather around Lucia. I'd be delighted if you could attend my tea party, Your Grace, one smiled. Do you have other engagements scheduled? Lucia responded warmly, but her attention was pulled by a familiar voice. Sophia had stepped forward. Your Grace, she said calmly, it's been an honor meeting you today. I hope we'll have the opportunity to meet again like this. Lucia's smile was poised and polite. Of course, she said, but her eyes said otherwise. Lucia remained silent, her gaze steady as she looked at the woman before her. Calmly, she responded. I can't say I share the sentiment. Perhaps it's best if we avoid crossing paths in the future. Her voice was soft, but her meaning clear. A few noblewomen at the table stifled laughter, whispering among themselves. The Countess really doesn't know when to give up, does she? Someone murmured. Trying to preserve her dignity, Countess Sophia Lawrence pulled a handkerchief from her sleeve and extended it with a trembling hand. His Grace gave me this handkerchief the last time we met, when he comforted me. I've kept it with me, hoping to return it one day. Your Grace, would you be so kind as to give it back to him, along with my gratitude? Lucia's eyes narrowed. The gesture, the tone, it was all too rehearsed. Her thoughts cut sharply through the moment. She's really going to claim that Hugh gave her a handkerchief? That's absurd. He would never do something so sentimentally polite, especially not for someone his cast aside. He's never been the type to comfort a former lover with tokens. He once went so far as to threaten her life at the victory celebration to sever ties. Why would he now offer her a handkerchief? Is she being stubborn, or is she just willfully ignorant? Either way, this is foolish, and revealing. She doesn't know him at all. And honestly, there's something satisfying about that. Without a change in expression, Lucia took the handkerchief and examined it briefly. I'm not familiar with which handkerchiefs Hugh personally carries, as the house staff typically handles such matters, she said, turning it over between her fingers. However, I know for certain this isn't his. This does not belong to my husband. The room fell quiet. Then, her tone sharpened. Countess Sylvain, she said, using Sophia's married title, you insult me with this lie. She let the handkerchief fall to the floor. This item doesn't belong to my husband. And more importantly, you've crossed a line I can no longer overlook. Today's behavior, this attempt to undermine me, won't be forgotten. Sophia turned pale, her composure crumbling. She dropped to her knees.
Oh,
Why, Your Grace? Please forgive me.
I
had a lapse in judgment, she stammered, voice shaking, her head bowed low. Around them, the murmurs resumed. She should have stopped after her Grace's first warning, one lady whispered. I don't think she understood the Duchess's intent at all. What was she thinking?
Sophia's body trembled.
Her thoughts raced, panic overtaking pride. The Tarans may not be able to touch my husband, Count Elvin, but House Lawrence?
We'd collapse instantly if the Duke decided to act. I have to prevent that at all costs.
Lucia stood still, unmoved by the display. I've endured worse in my dreams, public humiliation, countless indignities.
That doesn't affect me anymore. But Sophia tried to shake my trust in Hugh. That crosses the line.
She's not part of our relationship, yet she tried to drive a wedge between us out of bitterness. Her expression didn't waver as she delivered her judgment.
Return to your estate and think carefully about what you've done today.
I trust one won't be seeing you at another gathering in high society for some time. As for how long,
I leave that to your discretion.
But I strongly advise you to choose wisely. Without waiting for a reply, Lucia turned and left. Elsewhere, at the Imperial Palace, Duke Hugo Taran sat across from the Crown Prince, who grinned mischievously. I've made a little wager with my aide-de-camp, Prince Quays announced. We're betting on whether you're carrying a handkerchief right now.
The Duke exhaled. Here we go again, he thought.
Knights rarely carry them, I know, the Crown Prince continued, but you're unpredictable.
I said you don't have one.
My aide thinks you do.
And what exactly is at stake? The Duke asked, mildly curious. The prince smirked.
If I lose, I've promised to stop saying certain words in public. My aide insists I stop referring to the former king as that dead old man.
He wants me to say the late king instead.
Tiresome, isn't it?
The Duke gave him a flat look.
You should refer to him as the late king.
Prince Quays frowned.
Why should I? The man's dead. He paused, then leaned forward.
So?
Are you carrying one or not? There was a beat of silence.
Then, Hugo replied evenly.
As a matter of fact, yes, I am. The Crown Prince's face fell.
No.
I don't believe it, he cried as his aide silently celebrated. I wouldn't lie about something so minor, Hugo added. Still, prove it, the prince insisted. With a resigned sigh, Hugo reached into his coat and pulled out a white cotton handkerchief, placing it on the table.
Prince Quays blinked in disbelief.
I didn't think you had such delicate taste, he said, inspecting it. Aren't men supposed to carry dark-colored silk? This looks like something for children. Handkerchiefs are meant to wipe messes, Hugo replied coolly. Cotton is better at absorbing things.
Prince Quays studied it more closely.
The embroidery.
It's not professional. This was handmade.
And judging by the threadwork, likely by someone close to him.
A sister? No.
The Duchess.
He turned it over again.
The cloth is soft, the embroidery sweet. A little flower stitched into the corner. I'll keep it.
What?
Hugo said, startled. It's just a handkerchief, the Crown Prince shrugged, tucking it into his pocket with a smile. It's not just a handkerchief, Hugo thought, annoyed. I wasn't even carrying it to use.
A memory surfaced.
Lucia, sitting quietly with her embroidery hoop.
What are you making? Hugo had asked her.
A handkerchief. I'm going to send it to Damien. It was simple, a white cotton cloth, a small flower in the corner. She had made many and sent them off every few months to their son. Over time, she began embroidering Damien's initials instead. Maybe I should have just asked her for one, Hugo had thought. But it felt silly. So I started taking them quietly. In his study drawer, several of them were neatly folded. Let's hope Vivian never opens this drawer, he thought. Now, sitting across from Quays, Hugo felt the sting.
He took one of the last ones.
I should be upset, but asking for it back would make me look petty. The Crown Prince leaned back, smug. Just wait. I'll win the next wager for sure. The Duke muttered under his breath. Just do your job, will you? The Duke's carriage pulled into the estate just as the moon reached its peak. The air was cool and quiet, a stark contrast to the day's earlier noise. As Duke Hugo de Taran stepped down, Jerome met him with a bow. Welcome back,
Your Grace. Her Grace has already retired for the evening. It seems the party left her quite tired, he reported respectfully. Without a word, the Duke made his way to her bedchambers. Inside, the room was dimly lit. Lucia lay peacefully under the covers.
The tension in her features had eased, her breathing soft and even. Hugo moved to her side, careful not to wake her as he sat beside her on the edge of the bed. Gently, he brushed a strand of hair from her face.
Her eyelids fluttered open.
Hugh? You're back, she whispered, her voice heavy with sleep. I didn't mean to wake you, he said softly, pulling the blanket a little higher over her shoulders. She smiled faintly and reached for him, arms wrapping around his waist as she leaned into his warmth.
He returned the embrace with a light squeeze.
You're not feeling unwell, are you? He asked, watching her face carefully.
No, just tired, she replied.
I think the nerves got to me. It's been a while since I attended such a crowded gathering.
How was the tea party? He asked again, more deliberately this time.
She paused, then answered evenly, like any other. Being the Duchess now, most of the ladies were just eager to gain favor.
She didn't mention Sophia.
Lucia had considered telling him everything, how Countess Sophia had tried to provoke her, how she'd publicly clung to memories that didn't belong in the present.
But she decided against it.
The incident, though irritating, hadn't shaken her. Hugh had ended things with Sophia long ago, and Lucia had already made it clear that her behavior wouldn't be tolerated.
If she's smart, she'll stay quiet. But if she dares cause trouble again, I won't let it go next time. I won't flaunt power recklessly, but I can't afford to be seen as weak either. She changed the subject.
Do you know how many questions I got just because you escorted me today? She asked with a small huff, cheeks tinged pink.
He looked amused.
Is that unusual? None of the other husbands came. I figured it wasn't proper.
Then I'll set a new precedent, he replied, a hint of mischief in his tone. There he goes again, she thought. Sometimes he's just too stubborn for his own good. I don't want you escorting me every time, she said.
I hate being made a spectacle.
He raised an eyebrow.
Why do you always care so much about what people think?
She met his gaze.
Don't you ever wonder if maybe you don't care enough?
He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned down and kissed her suddenly. She was startled but responded naturally. Just when she thought he might linger, he laid her gently back and pulled the covers over her. Sleep. You still look tired.
She blinked, a little dazed. Was that it? I'm heading to the study. I have some work to do, he said, already standing.
Do you really have that much to do? She asked. Not really, he admitted.
But it's more productive than lying awake next to you all night.
Lucia stared at him in disbelief.
Is that all you ever think about? Of course, he replied without hesitation.
She laughed quietly.
He smiled faintly and kissed her forehead before turning to leave. Later that night, in his study, Duke Hugo sat at his desk, reviewing Jerome's latest reports. This is the list of attendees from today's party, he asked. Yes, Your Grace, Jerome confirmed.
He flipped through the list slowly.
She said nothing unusual happened, he thought. But as he scanned the names, one caught his eye.
His fingers paused.
Sophia Elvin, he muttered, the name sending a chill through him.
He set the document down.
Have someone investigate everything that happened at the party. I want it done quickly, he ordered. A few days later, Fabian arrived with a stack of documents. I had all the servants questioned. These reports cover every conversation, even those at the edges of the hall, Fabian explained. The Duke nodded, already skimming through a page. Sophia's remarks were all there, her fabricated claims, the way she tried to stir conflict. But more importantly, Vivian's calm, graceful response was noted in detail.
He frowned deeply.
She handled it well, but this was her first formal appearance in the capital.
She could have been humiliated. And yet, she said nothing. Not even a hint of anger. She claimed it was just a normal event. He tightened his grip on the report.
Is she keeping things from me because she thinks it doesn't matter? Or because I no longer matter? A wave of frustration hit him.
She's been warmer lately.
When she smiles, it's so bright I forget everything else.
But if she's distancing herself again, if she's building those walls back up, he clenched his fist.
When I greeted Sophia at the palace, it was meaningless.
A formality.
But maybe I shouldn't have spoken to her at all. I didn't consider how Vivian would feel. He sat back, bitter regret clouding his thoughts.
Is this what it feels like to be helpless? To have something so important to you, and not know where you stand? Then another thought came. Maybe she really isn't angry. Maybe she's already dismissed it as unworthy of her attention. That would explain her silence. But the uncertainty gnawed at him. Still, the woman I knew in the north, she was capable of closing off completely, even as she lay beside me like nothing had changed. Could that be happening again? He inhaled sharply. Count Jordan. Count Elvin. His voice was cold. If either of you had a hand in this, I'll make sure you regret it. Even if I have to drag you both down myself. Duke Hugo Taran sat alone in his study, jaw clenched, thoughts running in circles. Calm down, he told himself. Technically, their husbands aren't directly to blame. But still, this can't go unanswered. He glanced down at the document in his hand. I have no justification to confront Count Jordan outright. I'll just keep him under close watch for now. As for Count Elvin, he's too deeply invested in the capital. If I act without caution, others might rally to his defense. He exhaled slowly, brow furrowed. If I move to isolate him politically, Quays will complain for sure. But perhaps there's another way. Leaning back, his expression turned contemplative. If I can't deal with him now, maybe I can send him somewhere far. A quiet exile disguised as opportunity. He remembered Elvin's repeated attempts to enter the tea trade. All failed. A small smirk formed. Taran guilds operate globally. Some are in the tea business. I could use one as a front, offer Elvin a new opportunity. He'll jump at the chance. And once he leaves Jenin, he'll fade from relevance. From a certain perspective, it might even look like a reward. He disliked the approach, but pragmatism had to win out. This is cleaner. Less noise. I don't enjoy these kinds of politics, but for Lucia, I'll do it. His grip on the document loosened. His thoughts drifted again to the rumors swirling after Lucia's debut. His chest tightened. Should I just ask her? But what if she tells me she doesn't care about my past lovers? That would sting more than anger. He folded his arms. But if she says she's hurt and can't trust me anymore, that would be worse. Jerome stood nearby, quietly observing his master's mood. That's all, Your Grace, he said gently. But the Duke didn't respond, lost in thought. He seems especially down today, Jerome noted before leaving the room. Later that day, Hugo leaned against a staircase railing, meeting briefly with Crown Prince Quays. This is driving me insane, he thought. I've never had to hesitate like this before. I usually just say whatever's on my mind. Quays approached with a familiar grin. I finally won a wager with my aide-de-camp, he said brightly. It's been a while. Anyway, my coronation's just a few weeks away. But Hugo barely registered the words. Is this what people mean when they say they are suffering inside? My chest feels heavy. That evening, as they walked in the garden, Lucia linked her arm with his, her mood light. I have another tea party tomorrow, but it doesn't feel so stressful, she said, smiling. I met a marchioness at the last one, and she was actually quite kind. Should I bring it up now? He wondered. It's already been 10 days since the Sophia incident, and Vivian's attended several gatherings since then. Why am I hesitating so much? A few more days passed. One evening, they received a letter from Damien. During their stroll, Lucia happily shared the contents. He already knew everything from the reports, yet he listened as if hearing it all for the first time, not wanting to dampen her cheerful mood. That night, as she sat at her dressing table preparing for bed, he finally decided. Seated on the bed behind her, he spoke quietly. Vivian, I've been hearing some rumors. She turned to him calmly. Yes. They said something happened at your first social gathering. That Countess Elvin hasn't been seen in public since. Lucia nodded faintly. Yes. That's true. Why didn't you tell me? She shrugged. Things like that happen all the time at those parties. It didn't seem worth bringing up. He blinked, a bit surprised. You really think something like that is trivial? She turned, her gaze steady. I do. But only because I have complete faith in you. His breath caught. She's saying it doesn't matter, because she trusts me? She continued, voice even. Since you brought it up, though, would you mind telling me the names of all the women you were once involved with? Hugo stared at her. Why would you want to know? I'm not angry, but I should be aware. If something like this happens again, I want to be prepared. That's all. So rational. So composed. It wasn't the reaction he had feared,
But neither was it what he hoped for.
Very well, he replied. I'll have Jerome compile a list. Lucia smiled gently.
There was a time I wished women would be this indifferent, Hugo thought. But now, she's the only one I want to care, and she's too composed. Here I am, hoping to win even the smallest part of her heart.
He walked over and wrapped his arms around her from behind.
Vivian, he said seriously.
What she said about me wasn't true. I've never met with Sophia privately.
Not even once. Please believe me. She looked at him, still smiling faintly.
I know. Like I said, I trust you. His eyes widened.
You really mean it?
Of course.
You gave me your word.
He swallowed.
So she didn't tell me, not out of resentment, but because she wasn't worried. Because she believes in me. He pulled her into a quiet kiss, holding her close. This feeling, it's unfamiliar but warm. The kind that makes your chest ache a little, like you're holding back tears. I felt it, once, long ago, when my brother was still alive. This is happiness, he thought, sinking into her embrace. The coronation had finally come to a close. Duke Hugo stood amid fading applause and the steady stream of well-wishers, watching as dignitaries bowed and noblemen offered their predictable smiles. I should leave soon to get Vivian, he thought, adjusting his gloves. Though his face remained composed, his mind was already far from the palace. Your Grace, a noble called out breathlessly.
We're so relieved everything went smoothly, another added.
Yes, a truly glorious event, a third chimed in. Your Grace, a councilman said, nearly blocking his path, I trust you'll join the celebration party that's about to begin. Another voice quickly followed. If you have a moment, there's a matter I'd like to discuss. Your Grace.
More voices led atop each other.
Hugo's patience frayed. Without replying, he pushed through the crowd and stepped into his carriage.
I wasn't the one crowned today. Why are they all swarming me? He thought with growing irritation. And now I'm running behind.
Vivian must be wondering where I am.
He glanced out the carriage window.
If I'm not mistaken, the designer is probably at the estate now, helping her get ready. His eyes narrowed slightly, touched with possessiveness. Hopefully she doesn't make Vivian too beautiful. It wasn't jealousy, at least not entirely. It was protectiveness tangled with unease.
It's different when it's just women at a tea party.
But tonight, there'll be men.
And if she draws too much attention.
He exhaled sharply, remembering a particularly flirtatious noble from a previous event.
I can't exactly blind everyone in the room.
No one should have the audacity to approach a married woman while her husband's present, unless they are reckless.
But eventually, she'll attend events without me. What then?
At last, the carriage arrived at the estate. Welcome back, Your Grace, Jerome greeted. Her Grace is waiting in the drawing room.
Hugo gave a brief nod and moved quickly inside.
When he opened the door, his eyes immediately found hers. Lucia turned, elegant in her evening gown. Oh, you're here, she said warmly. He paused for a breath, stunned by her beauty. I want to kiss her. You look beautiful, he said, approaching. And you're quite dashing yourself, she replied with a small smile.
He took her hand gently and pressed a kiss to it.
I want to take her away now.
Skip the party.
Just the two of us, until morning.
But instead, he forced down the urge. Be patient, he told himself. Don't scare her away.
Thank you for your help today, Madam Aunt, Lucia said, turning to the designer with a grateful smile.
The designer blushed lightly. Duke Hugo gave her a curt nod.
Well done. Yes, Your Grace.
Aunt replied brightly.
All the final touches are finished. Then let's go, he said, offering his arm to Lucia. As they left, Aunt murmured to herself, eyes gleaming.
I knew it. His Grace is absolutely smitten with her. It's all over his face.
What a sight. A duke who spends without hesitation just to please his wife. Their love belongs in a novel.
She sighed happily.
And to think, I'm the one walking away with all that coin. Later, in the carriage, Lucia peeked out the window as the vehicle began to slow.
Is this the Queen's residence already? She thought, a little tense. Her hands folded in her lap. I suddenly feel so nervous.
She'd attended tea parties before, but tonight's event was on another scale. Foreign guild leaders, high-ranking nobles, and powerful families would all be present. She looked at her reflection in the window, second-guessing her appearance. Noticing her tension, Hugo leaned in and kissed her softly. The kiss lingered. When he pulled away, his lips were lightly stained. I nearly couldn't stop myself, he thought. You've got a bit of lipstick, Lucia said, reaching to wipe it away. He gently stopped her and wiped it himself. It'll smudge more if you use your fingers, she protested softly, handing him a handkerchief instead. He accepted it, but rather than clean his lips, he leaned forward and kissed her again. And this time, neither of them pulled away quickly.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure. If you enjoyed what you watched, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. Your comments mean the world to us and help us improve. The next episode promises even more excitement and unexpected twists, so stay tuned as we embark on this thrilling journey together. Keep the anticipation alive, and we'll catch you in the next episode.